Numbers are popping up.
Okay. Fabulous. Okay. Good afternoon. Thank you everyone for being here. My name is Danielle Liddick, and I am a career coach in the Career Enrichment Network here in the College of the Liberal Arts. Today is our alumni career conversation, Careers in Human Resources. Joining me to begin with as a moderator and to assist with the Q&A is my colleague, Dana Wenger.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here today. More students are coming into the panel as we speak. We're so thankful for these generous alumni giving their time to share their career pathways and experiences with you and being Penn Staters and everything you have in common. I'm a career coach here in the Career Enrichment Network and available to meet with students one-on-one. We will be sharing information as we go through about setting up appointments and our events that are coming up this semester and in the future. So thank you for being here today.
All right, so we have 3 great alumni mentors with us to speak about their career journey and to provide helpful information and advice for fellow Penn Staters about this industry. I'm going to begin by reading our alumni bios, and I have some questions prepared to ask if needed, but we do encourage you to use the Q&A to share your own thoughts or questions. Like I said, Dana and I will be monitoring that along the way. So first we have Ashley Molick. Ashley excels as a human resources manager, bringing extensive expertise in organizational development, employee relations, talent acquisition, and compensation and benefits management. Her professional journey spans across diverse industries, including healthcare, manufacturing, and technology. Specializing in leadership training and development, Ashley goes beyond the conventional HR role, empowering leaders to comprehend the profound impact their actions have on shaping the experiences of team members. Her keen insights foster a culture of growth and collaboration within organizations. Beyond her corporate achievements, Ashley is the founder and dedicated executive director of A Christmas Wish, a 501c3 nonprofit committed to serving Centre County families. In this role, she exemplifies her passion for making a positive impact in the community by orchestrating meaningful initiatives that spread joy and support during the holiday season. Thank you for being here with us today, Ashley.
Thank you.
Next on our panel is Jeffrey Recapito. Jeff is the Vice President of Human Resources for Corporate and Enterprise Services at RTX. With 185,000 employees worldwide, RTX is the parent company of Collins Aerospace, Pratt & Whitney, and Raytheon. Jeff brings over 25 years of career experiences that have spanned different industries, disciplines, and continents. As an alum, he is passionate about all things Penn State and is humbled to have his 2 sons currently attending University Park. He also has a daughter in high school who just might do the same someday. Jeff graduated from Penn State in 1995 with a degree in labor studies and industrial relations before going on to earn his law degree from Hofstra University in 1998. His work has taken him from the legal world to the corporate world and from the US to China and back again. It's probably not a surprise to hear him say that a clearly defined career path is less important to your success than your ability to accept big challenges and show how you can learn new things and adapt along the way. I love that. Welcome, Jeff.
Thank you very much for having me. Hello, everybody.
Our next panelist is Jordan Lowry. Jordan is a proven human resources leader and consultant with over 15 years of experience in human capital strategy, organizational effectiveness, organization design, talent management, and change management. She's currently the Organizational Effectiveness Manager for the Rotary and Mission Systems business area of the Lockheed Martin Corporation. In this role, she leads organization transformation and design efforts for the $17 billion enterprise employing 35,000 people across the globe. More recently, Jordan served as a management and strategy consulting manager for PricewaterhouseCoopers Public Sector LLP, where she managed the scope, budget, staffing, and schedule for a multi-million-dollar consulting contract. In this role, she led a team of 7 consultants supporting a chief human capital office in its mission to identify, analyze, and improve human capital business processes and governance structures across multiple federal agencies. Beginning her career with the Lockheed Martin Corporation, Jordan held roles of increasing responsibility within human resources to include as an HR business partner, a talent and organizational capability consultant, and an HR manager. She is a graduate of the Lockheed Martin Human Resources Leadership Development Program. Jordan holds a Bachelor of Arts in Labor and Employee Relations and Psychology from the Pennsylvania State University and a Master of Business Administration from the Georgetown University McDonough School of Business. She is certified as a senior professional in human resources by the HR Certification Institute and an associate certified coach by the International Coaching Federation. Jordan lives in Alexandria, Virginia, with her spouse, Jeffrey, and their children, Penelope and Beatrice. Welcome, Jordan.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Thank you all so much for being here and sharing your bios with us. I want to again remind those in attendance, you may put your questions in the Q&A, but I would like to start off the conversation with the question, how did you decide on your career journey? Let's start in the order in which you were introduced. So Ashley, can you start things off?
Yeah, thank you so much, Danielle. So I started my HR career not knowing at all what human resources was. I got my first job in high school at a local movie theater and worked there for 5 years through high school and college. During that time, I was promoted to manager, so I had the opportunity to become involved in a lot of typical HR functions without realizing what it was. So things like hiring, coaching employees, payroll, different things like that. And when I was in college, was one of those that changed my major several times, didn't quite know what I wanted to do, and was chatting with a friend, and she said, well, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I wish I could make more money working at this movie theater because I really love what I do. And she said, you know, my sister works in HR. Have you ever heard of it? And I said, no. Small movie theater, we don't have an HR department, you know, and so she got me connected with her sister, and really from there learned what human resources even was as a career field, and that led me to research to learn about the LER program through Penn State. So I'm incredibly thankful for that almost luck of learning what this field even was.
That is awesome. Talk about networking at its best.
Exactly.
All right. Jeff, how about you?
Sure. So I would say I didn't know I wanted to be in HR, and that's because at the time I really enjoyed labor relations. And I think you read in my bio, right, it was like industrial relations at the time, right? And so that's how it was referred to. But I wasn't really an HR professional that I wanted to aspire to be. I thought, you know what, I think I want to go to law school. So it was going to be more of the labor stand. I loved union negotiations. I loved when I was at Penn State actually doing mock negotiations on either side, right, that we would take. And I just loved that aspect of it, of seeing both sides of things. But the only reason I ended up in HR was because I became a labor attorney and worked at law firms for about 5 years, and then came inside at the time at Otis Elevator. And that company said, well, we want labor lawyers, but the catch is they're not under the legal department, they're in HR. And so I was like, okay, I guess that's all right. I had to get over the fact that I wasn't, you know, a practicing lawyer anymore. But once I got involved, I realized that like labor is just one component of the HR landscape. And so I just started to become interested. So I had no aspirations of being like an HR partner someday. I was really like, you know what, I have zero interest. And then I saw how it can actually drive business results, and I started to dabble in it and do more. And that's what got me there. So kind of to my bio, I didn't have a set determination at, you know, the age of 18 when I was going to college, or even when I came out, that this is exactly what I wanted to do. I just kind of figured it out along the way.
Wow, your clearly defined career path being less important. That is like that
100%. Yeah, 100%.
Lovely,
Yeah.
lovely. Thank you. Jordan, how about you?
Yeah, sure. So much like Ashley and Jeff, I didn't really know what human resources was until I got into college. I don't think I've ever met a younger person who's like, I really want to be a human resources professional when I grow up, right? It's kind of one of those professions that you learn about as you learn about the world of work. So I came to Penn State and I was interested in psychology. I knew I wanted to study that and major in that because I've just always been interested in human behavior, why people, make the decisions they make and how their environment impacts. I spent a semester in a clinical psychology research lab, and I quickly learned while it was interesting, research and academia was not the route I wanted to take. I had to figure out something else to do. And I took a class in IO psychology, industrial organizational psychology, and that's how I kind of discovered this very applicable aspect of psychology and human resources. And I discovered the LER school, and really from there decided that that was going to be my career path. I was hired by Lockheed Martin into their human resources leadership development program, so I got to kind of build my foundational knowledge through doing rotations in a lot of different areas of HR. But throughout my career, I've kind of when I was consulting, I was in some ways in HR, but not in a very traditional HR role. I'm now in more of a specialist HR role. So this career path is really one that can take you in many different directions. So yeah, I love Jeff's philosophy on it. It's certainly not a straight line in HR. You can go a lot of different ways in different areas in the business.
And I think that's why it's so exciting and interesting to some folks, because there isn't just one straight line, as many liberal arts majors, but human resources is definitely one of those. Speaking about liberal arts, what liberal arts skills do you feel are probably most valuable to you in your career? We start with Jeff this time.
Sure. I don't know that I'd say it's a specific skill, but I think it's the environment. As a liberal arts major, you end up with a variety of things that you touch and that you learn and that you get exposed to. And I think that gives you broader perspective, which you need, especially in human resources, when you're dealing with the people element, business environments, political environments, right? Everything that you see and read every day somehow ends up at an HR professional's like desk in one shape or form, right? For better or worse. And so I think having that exposure to the kind of broad panoply of stuff that you get as a liberal arts major, as opposed to being highly specific and very narrowly tailored, is what creates the benefit longer term for a role like this.
Right.
Yeah, I would agree. I think related to that, being able to kind of think in the gray, the types of problems that you're solving are not technical, black and white, has one answer problems in this career field. And I think a liberal arts education and the types of work you do and the critical thinking that you need to do prepares you well for that type of thinking in paradox and thinking in gray areas.
Yeah, and I just want to elaborate on that a little bit and kind of add that within the liberal arts college, I think that not only variety and having those critical thinking skills, but communication truly is so key to this position. Not only being able to communicate with others, but also being able to recognize when information needs to be communicated out to others and who those individuals are, because that can be something very important that can be easily lost. And so being able to kind of analyze, all right, who is going to be impacted by this? Who needs to understand the message and in what order are all very important. So along with that, I think, with the liberal arts, there was a lot of exposure from my perspective of different lifestyles, which of course, talking about diversity is so important in this field to not only support the employees within your organization, but understand that everyone is coming from a different place and they're not always going to be where you want them to be, right? So being able to kind of acknowledge where they're coming from to help guide them in the best way that you can for that specific individual or that group of people.
Thank you for that. Your perspectives are so great. What would you say are the most encouraging parts of your work? What do you love most about your daily routine or responsibilities? And if we can start with Jordan this time.
Sure. I think for this one, what I find the most energizing and like the most about my job is I'm never really solving the same problem twice. I have a lot of unique opportunities and problems and kind of thorny issues that I get to help solve, which can be a little daunting. There are certainly days when I'm like, can I just get like the same problem to solve again? Can I just have like some checklist to go through, and you just want to switch your brain off? But no, I mean, I think everything's unique. Even if, I work in organization design and leaders come and they're like, can you just tell me what the best design is for this organization? And the answer is always like, well, no, we've got to look at your unique organization and your unique skill sets and the talents and the processes you have in place. So even though I rely on, methods and best practices and processes to work through, it's always something unique because it's dealing with people, it's dealing with, organizations that are all different. So I'm definitely energized by just always getting new problems to solve and tackle.
Yeah, I love that. I agree. HR has so much variety that it is always fresh, which is something that I love about this field is that, there are definitely cyclical cadences as it comes to what we're working on, but it's so refreshing to have that variety in the day to day. I have two things that energize me that I know are just my favorite parts of HR. The first one is leadership development and coaching, so helping managers lead their employees. I am so I get so jazzed whenever I'm able to do that work with folks because I love talking about things like servant leadership and positive reinforcement and coaching team members to be the best that they can be, and leading as a coach rather than a disciplinary or a judge. And so I love teaching those concepts. I love having conversations with managers about how to go about doing that, to really empower employees because it is so rewarding to me to see the paradigm shift whenever that happens and see how much progress and how much employees are really able to develop whenever they're given the support and the tools that they need to be able to do their jobs. The second thing that I love is HR is in a really unique position within a company where, we're the voice of the employees, right? So we're an advocate for those folks, but we also are protecting the business, right? From a legal perspective, a risk perspective, and a financial perspective. So it is, to me, very challenging, which I think is why I find it to be very engaging, balancing what's good for employees, what's good for morale, what's good for culture, satisfaction, engagement, and then balancing that with what is good for our business. And there are points where that aligns, but in this position, you really have to be the advocate for that and kind of explain those things and play devil's advocate in many ways, to explain to employees why we have to do things that are good for the business and maybe that they don't love, but also to explain to our executive team, why it's worth the investment to put money into our employees. And so I love that challenge and that kind of balancing line there.
Yeah, I actually have two as well, if I can be so bold. I guess the first one, and I kind of mentioned it earlier, but it's the influencing of like real business outcomes. So I didn't realize this before I really got into an HR role and understood that when done right, you drive a business decision. Like one will get made by a president, a GM, a VP, whatever it is, but it should be influenced by you. And so if you play that role and you're in an environment where they're kind of accepting and willing, right? You're at the table, so to speak, as they always say. It's amazing the things that you have an impact on. And you say, wow, we actually built that factory in that location because of the work that, my team did to work to figure out where was the best place to spot it based on a talent agenda and a strategy, based on our growth plan. Like there's so much that you can look back on and say, yeah, I touched that. And I love that part, right? Because you're actually doing something that's significantly impactful and will be here longer than you will be, right? In terms of your role in where you're at. The second one, maybe a bit more towards my personality, and I'm speaking from like an HR partner perspective. I love the chaos and the unpredictability of being an HR partner. Every single day, I think I'm going to do these like 7 or 8 things, and I'm not kidding. Every single day, it gets blown up at some point in time in the day. It gets blown up with something new that comes that you have to immediately pivot to and deal with. And yes, it's frustrating. Ashley, I think to your point, you still have those moments when you're like, okay, I've had enough today. Can I just have like a moment of calm? But it's also what gives me adrenaline. It drives me. It's what kind of excites me every day to come in because I don't know what I'm about to get. And I think that's fun. It's not for everybody, I get it. But I think on the HR partner side, it happens all the time. Yep.
That's great. Yeah. So being able to pivot and shift your attention and think on your feet are also skills that are necessary to be successful.
For sure.
Right. Okay. So this is like the strengths and then the weaknesses question, right? So on the flip side, what would you say are the hardest or most discouraging parts of your work, or a big challenge about working in the job that maybe is a regular challenge or something that surprised you, but would be good for these students to know? We'll start with Jeff.
Sure. I mean, I think one's probably the most obvious when you have a role in HR. There are very difficult business decisions that need to get made and actions that need to be taken. And you as the HR leader need to now own those decisions as a business leader and go execute against those. And you have to have really difficult conversations with folks about their careers and their futures. And in some cases, they're so incredibly difficult. And I always say, look, if somebody does something, inappropriate, ethically wrong, right, and someone needs to be separated from the company, I always feel like, okay, you made your bed on that one, right? But when you have certain things through no fault of their own, you have to make a change and you have to sit down with this person and be empathetic and explain what is a horrific situation for them. It's incredibly challenging and difficult. I'm sure I can speak for all of us. Like, we hate every one of those. We understand it comes with the job, but it's so incredibly difficult to do. And so that's the biggest challenge. The other one I would say is from a business perspective, and I'll attribute this to the size of RTX, right? We have 3 business units that are $20+ billion each. We look at things and say, look, it would be better. Why are we doing this 3-4 different ways, right? Across these businesses, because they're so vast. Let's pull something into the center, like corporate, and let's do it one way. It'll be more efficient, more cost effective, and all of that makes sense. And everybody nods their head. And then you start doing the math and you realize that as you move work around, one business unit saves some money because you're going to pull it in. Another one, it's going to cost them more. And so what's the most challenging for me is that if we operate on consensus, you'll never get there, because the one business that has a negative in that situation is never going to say yes to it because it's impacting their monthly, quarterly, and annual results. And so you feel like you're never getting to the right answer because you have these real obstacles to try to overcome. I find that to be incredibly challenging because now you have to try to get the entire organization to think as one. And you'd like to think we all do, but we don't, right? Everyone needs to take care of their own backyard. And so for me, it's a massive challenge. It takes a ton of work and it's just not always successful. So that's one. And I don't know if it replicates it everywhere, but at our scale, it shows up a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll add to that. I think, of course, layoff season is always incredibly difficult, and that's something, like Jeff had said, to no one's fault. You're having to have very serious conversations with folks about their future, and how their lives are going to be impacted because of that. Another one for me that I can think of as discouraging, but also a challenge in many ways, is there are opportunities and will be opportunities to lead a lot of initiatives within the organization. And there are many times when managers or business unit leaders will come and say, we have this problem and we need to fix it. Can you help us? And the answer is yes, right? But the proposal might be too expensive or take too much time. And maybe we don't want to invest those resources in a potential solution. And so sometimes there can be situations where it's like, if we could only invest in this, we could fix the problem, but we have to, commit dollars or time, which time is money, into solving these things. And that can be a little bit disheartening as well. But I think it also creates a level of creativity and innovation amongst ourselves as far as, well, okay, so what can we do with what we have? And I think that that can be frustrating. It can be challenging, but I've also seen a lot of really, really wonderful initiatives flourish from that. And so I think, kind of flipping it as to how it can encourage us to be better HR professionals as well. So it's kind of a two-part answer.
Yeah, I'll chime in with just a bit of a different slant coming from, my role primarily is like an internal consulting role. And I was in consulting prior, and I would say that discouraging part there is partnering with leaders sometimes on when they want to do really big reorganizations, large organization transformations, and they can be very impatient for results, right? And they want to know coming in, what is our ROI going to be on this? And all of that's really important. And we have a lot of ways that we can measure that and look at it. But when you're talking about really big, large scale change like that, the hard truth is that you're probably going to see a little bit of like a dip in some of your ROI measures at first, right? You're going to see lower productivity. You're going to see employees who are confused and some chaos and some disengagement while they work their way through that change curve. And that's where sometimes when we're working with leaders, they're like they want to like give up. They're like, this isn't working. This isn't, like, let's stop. Let's not go further. And it's like taking that convincing to say it's going to get worse before it gets better. And so, to the point of having to have those really difficult, courageous conversations, sometimes it's with employees, sometimes it's with leaders, and you've got to be like the voice in the room that's pushing back, and that's kind of talking with senior leadership and talking them through why certain changes and certain things we signed up to are worth it, and the time that it's going to take and the dedication that it's going to take. And so I've seen times when they're willing and they sign up and they push through, and times when they're like they don't want to, and that's always, it's disappointing because if it's hard not to have it feel like a personal failure for you. I wasn't able to see this project through. So that's just kind of the role that you find yourself in a lot in HR, is that support function to the senior leadership team.
Wow, a lot of great information from all of you. Thank you so much for that. I just want to reiterate to everybody who's attending, feel free. I have plenty of questions to ask, but if you have any that you would like to have answered, please put them in the Q&A. I think Dana's like really waiting to have them responded to. So please feel free to put them in the Q&A.
I'm taking notes of our speakers right now. This is amazing information. But yes, please put questions in.
I have one that I'm sure those who are on this call are interested. What would you say are some general tips or advice that you would like to provide a current student interested in this field for them preparing, if they have questions, if they're looking for guidance on activities to pursue, on positions to try to gain experiences, anything that you feel would be valuable for them to prepare for a career in this industry? Can we start with Ashley?
Yeah, so I have my experience was complete luck. Like, I did not plan it this way, but in looking back, I recognize how valuable it was for me. And so this is something that I recommend to students is, I know senior year, when you're ready to graduate and you're looking for a job, it turns into one of those things where you kind of just start applying to everything that you can because you're just trying to land that first job, right? Which can be incredibly difficult and it can take time. Whenever I had my first career out of school, it was with a large healthcare organization. We had 30,000 employees and an HR department of over 100. So starting out, I didn't think anything of it, but as I was there and after, I realized how valuable it was to have that many HR professionals at a hand's reach. So yes, we were virtual. There were people spread out all over, but there were absolute experts in every area that you could imagine. So a generalist, right, knows a little bit about a lot, or a medium amount about a lot, but not so nitty-gritty detailed as someone does purely compensation for a living, or purely benefits, or purely employee relations. And so being in an organization that had so many folks in HR was it was like an HR dictionary, right? Any question you had could be answered. And especially starting out and trying to really learn and understand these different areas, it was invaluable to me, because I feel like I had an opportunity to um, be mentored by the best of the best. And that made an incredible impact then whenever I was ready to transition to a mid-sized company where our HR department was 2 people, right? So now I'm well-rounded. I've had a lot of really great experience and exposure. I have contacts that I can ask questions to. And so that was incredibly valuable for me. So I encourage you, of course, it might be different for you and your experience might be different, but I personally would never want to work as an HR department of one as a new grad. So I think finding someone who can help mentor you and grow you and develop you as a professional is invaluable.
Excellent.
So
Oh,
I can follow up, Danielle, if you, everyone talks about networking, and I remember thinking when I was in school that, well, I don't really have a network yet, right? I haven't really had a job, or maybe I had an internship, right? But I was completely wrong about that. So like everybody on this call, if you're in classes together, you know each other, right? Putting aside any of us who are on this with you, like that's your network. So when you all go off and get into internships, if you get full-time jobs after graduation, these are all the folks that you should lean into while you're there to ask questions, especially if you're uncomfortable in a new place, asking what you think is a silly question. You can ask your friends and colleagues from college about it. Like, what are they experiencing? Do they have something that would be helpful for you? What type of, benchmarking can you do with them that now you can bring to the company that you're at? Like, you have a network that you're establishing already, and it's tough to realize that sometimes. So I would say leverage each other on that one. The other component is, even with an internship or your first job, it's all what you make of it. So whatever the job description says and what you're supposed to do on like your day to day, you can turn that into something more. You can volunteer for other activities. You can see something that's of interest that's maybe outside of the 4 walls of what you're supposed to do every day, and say like, I want in. And they're like, well, I don't know if you have time for it. Like, I'll make time. I'll figure it out. I'll work later. Like, do those things, get engaged. People will get excited to have you want to partner with them. And then that will create another opportunity and another opportunity, right? Because those are the people you always want on your team. So I would say like seize the opportunities that are in front of you, even if you're in an environment. And I know this even from like, I said, like I have boys who are at, Penn State today and going through internships. And I'm like, there's the stuff that gets assigned to you. And then there's the other stuff that's out there that you have to become aware of and try to insert yourself into. It's not easy, but if you can do it, it'll make you incredibly successful.
excellent. Thank you both for that. I see we have a few questions.
We do. We have one specifically for Jeffrey to start. And then also I put in the chat, we have a etiquette dinner coming up, and sign up is due by this Friday. So Jeffrey was mentioning opportunities to network, and in the chat there, if you want to check it out, that's coming up in April.
Good plug. Well done.
So the question that is for you, Jeff, specifically, is asking, how did your time in law school prepare you for careers outside of law?
Sure. So at the end of the day, I think law school helped me in my communication skills, obviously what you would expect, right? Kind of, being able to hold a room, being persuasive, like, of course, those things, resonate across every discipline, not just HR or legal for that matter. But I would also say just clarity and communication made me a better writer, made me understand and be, I would say, more sensitive to my audience. So the way I was writing to like a peer group versus a bunch of senior leaders versus a population of, 5,000 people, it's all very different. And you could have the same overarching message you're trying to convey to all of those, but how you do it differently so you can be the most persuasive. I feel like going through law school and having to deal with that is what actually got me better at it for sure. Because it made you sensitive to, is what I'm saying going to resonate with the people listening to it? Not just that I believe what I'm saying, I think it's persuasive. Like, can you say it in terms that make sense to the people who are listening to you? And I think that at the end of the day, it wasn't a particular class. It wasn't understanding like employment law specifically, because as we know, those laws change. They're different by jurisdiction anyway, whatever state you're in, city, you name it. It's about being able to learn quickly and be able to use that knowledge to help move things forward, whatever it might be. And to, again, have a way to communicate in a way that's effective to the audience in front of you.
Thank you. Looking at the Q&A, we have a couple of questions. They're different but similar. So I want to kind of combine those questions. The first one says, I come from a social science background, sociology, want to take an online grad program while getting full-time work experience. Can you begin working in HR spaces right out of undergraduate if HR was not your major? And the other question is similar, but it's geared towards internships. This person would like to ask if HR internships for undergraduates, particularly those offered in government, would be worth applying to regardless of their major, or would HR only be suitable for HR-related majors? So the questions basically are, if your major is not HR, are there opportunities for students to obtain experiences, whether internship or full-time, from different majors such as sociology or psychology or whatever it might be? Jordan, do you have a response for that?
Sure. I think that when you listen to all of us explain how we got into HR, right? There we had varied kind of roots in varied educational backgrounds, ways that we discovered the profession. And while there are more and more programs now that are focused on HR specifically, I think it is still a field where people from a lot of different backgrounds are kind of come in and enter in different ways. I think particularly when you're first starting out in your career, really in any business function too, there's a lot of on-the-job learning that you have to do working within a company, working in a large organization. So I think having, a background, a good educational background and foundation, a liberal arts education background and foundations, you have that critical thinking skills, you have the oral and written communication skills. It's going to set you up for success in HR or in another business field. And I think it's about looking at, what are they looking for in the job description? How can I craft my experiences in my resume to match it? So you can get in and get some real experience and decide whether you do like it, or maybe you don't, and you find that something else is for you.
Yeah, I would just comment. I agree completely with Jordan's comments, except that we have, especially for internships, at least for us at RTX, like we're not ruling out folks. Like it's not like you have to have an HR related, pursuing an HR related degree in order to get the internship. I can see how later in your career, you're like, okay, how do I stack up against these other candidates who have this level of experience and I don't? And then it becomes this kind of contest. I can see where that you could end up not being at the top of the list just because of that. But absolutely, like with internships, you should be doing that. You should be trying to get into areas where you're going to grow and learn about something new. And we're at the end of the day, it's not engineering, right? So I think there's certain areas, no offense to the engineers, but I'm like, you don't need that level of precision in your prior education in order to succeed in this field.
Thank you for that. I know I oftentimes find myself saying to liberal arts students, you're a liberal arts student, you can do anything, which is
Yeah.
great to think about it, but it's also kind of terrifying. We have another question in the chat. It says, I'm interested in training and development. How do you look for positions that are less generalized? And before I open this up to the panelists, I do want to say Dana had put in the chat some HR specific job sites. That is nice because they are all human resources type positions on those sites, where you could go out and search for keywords like training and development. But I would like to put it out there to the panelists. How would you recommend students who are interested in a role within human resources to look for open opportunities? Can we start with Ashley?
Yeah, I think I have a couple thoughts on that. And the first one is when I think of students who are particularly interested in one specific area of HR, like training and development, which is a great space to go into. Typically, the companies that are going to have positions open for something like that are going to be larger organizations that are investing dollars into their team. So, not focusing on your small or maybe even mid-sized employers, but rather going larger. So focusing on those larger employers. But I also want to iterate how much exposure you can get to something like that in something like an HR coordinator role, to kind of really develop that function and then move on to that specialized area. So, finding the right company that has, prioritized training and development, while also crafting some other HR skills as a way to kind of find your niche, experience it, see if you like it, and then develop even further in that area as you learn more about training and development, as you're able to identify some certifications or particular training programs that maybe you want to be certified in. Those are both, I think, in my opinion, some pretty valid routes to take.
Great, thank you. I'm going to loop back to one of my favorite questions. I know Jeff had mentioned about networking and how important it is, but I wanted to put it out there to everybody on here. How important do you think networking is when it comes to searching for opportunities, but also staying up to date with industry trends and growing your network in general? Can we start with Jordan on this one?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think it's extremely important and valuable, especially as you move further and further into your career. You get to a point where a lot of the opportunities that become available to you are because of the network that you've built. However, speaking to all of you who are in school now, I think it goes back to Jeff's earlier comment of you do have a network and you're currently building your network now, right? I got my first job out of Penn State from someone who I met as part of the Penn State CHRM chapter. I was in the student chapter of CHRM, and we were friends there. She got a job at Lockheed Martin, and then she came back to campus the next year and said, hey, I think you'd be a great fit here too, and recruited me to the company. So you are currently building your network. So it's really important to, through activities, through your classes, meet your fellow classmates, because they are going to be your network going into the working world.
Yeah, and I
Yeah,
can
just-
agree with that. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Jeff.
No, please, Ashley. Go.
Thank you. When I was a student, I had this misperception that networking was attending awkward events where everyone drank coffee and then I had to go have a 2-minute conversation with someone about HR. And I was like, that sounds terrible. I'm never going to do it. I'm not interested. And to be honest, I participated in a few events like that and not a ton, and really don't think that I utilized them to the best of my capability. But I feel like networking now, it's so much more than that. It truly is professional friendship, right? So working with people, getting to know them, developing relationships, that is your network. And when I was a student, again, I had this perception that it almost felt like you were using people, right? Like, I'm going to approach you because you can help me in my career. When in reality, it's developing those relationships without expectation of benefit or what you're going to get from it. And then down the line, you realize how much value there is in that, because, very much like Jordan landing her job, don't quote me on the percentage, but I believe it's like 78% of jobs are never posted to be filled because they're already filled before being posted. I think there's a lot of truth to that. I landed in my position now because my old CEO knew the CEO of my new company, and I personally knew the VP of operations. We had conversations, and next thing you know, I'm working here, which is just, one example of how strong networking can be. And, both of those individuals throughout my time working with them never anticipated kind of a career change or career move based on those relationships. But that's what happened. And so, speaking to that, one kind of piece of advice, I guess, going back to that is, remember in all of your student chapters and activities, but also when you land your first job in HR, and potentially even you have jobs now working, you're on your job interview every day. And every day people are observing your behavior, they're observing what you're getting done, what you're accomplishing, and they'll remember that. And that's what they're going to use in their minds whenever an opportunity pops up and they're deciding if they want to pursue you, recruit you, recommend you for that position. And so, never forget that you're always expected to bring your best foot forward, because that's truly what's going to make the difference.
And I'll just comment on the whole networking piece. When I think about Penn State and the value that it's given me in my career, I don't think about the 4 years that I spent getting my education, to be honest. I mean, it was wonderful. I think about all of the connections I've made since, simply because I went to Penn State. And the alumni network is a real thing. I've had so many interviews with Penn Staters where the ice is already broken now. It made it so much easier to, you're very nervous, especially earlier in your career, and it just made it so much easier to create a pathway. I've had examples where Penn Staters have supported me, not for roles in their current company, but because we share that background, they're aware of things happening someplace else and they've referred me over, right, for a connection. It doesn't mean that you get the job, but it helps open the door. It creates an environment where you're not just, applying with thousands of others and it gets lost, right, in the shuffle. You get a little harder look. And that's really all you're asking for. And I think that the network that Penn State has, that everybody's passionate, myself included, about it. Penn Staters matter when they come through. Like I want to look a little longer than maybe I looked at somebody else's because of that. So use it to your advantage.
Great, thank you. We have a question about any advice for someone to look in a defense contractor career field. Do you have any ideas about that?
I don't.
Jordan, you want to go first?
Yeah, that would be me and Jeff, I guess.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think defense contracting is a great place to work. It's a great industry. I was kind of within, I think if you listen to my bio, I started at Lockheed Martin. I left for a little while, went to a consulting firm. I came back to Lockheed Martin, and one of the reasons I came back was because I thought it was a wonderful company and a great industry. You're serving a higher mission in a lot of ways of national security and keeping the country safe. And so that just speaks to my values, and one of the reasons why I've stayed with Lockheed Martin for so long. I think that there's also a lot of hiring that we do. And I know that a lot of the other companies do. We're big organizations. So I would say, yeah, reach out to Penn State alum through LinkedIn, through networks, go on the career sites, let us know what jobs you're looking at and applying for, are all great ways to get in at a defense contractor, but definitely would recommend.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have much more to add. I think Jordan hit it. I think the kind of the mission and purpose is a really big aspect. Obviously, we have, we're very intentional about recruiting veterans but I'm not one, right? And so, there's a number of backgrounds that come in. I've been in commercial industries, right? Non-defense related industries before. I would say on the defense side, it's different. You can feel the difference about why people come to work every day. It's less about the day to day and what they're achieving, and more about what overall the mission of the company is and what we're serving. So it's not for everyone, right, admittedly, but for those that it is, it's pretty passionate. And so it's fun to be a part of that, right, to say the least. Yep.
Awesome. Yeah, and I think the student that asked the question is actually a veteran. So
Oh,
I'm
well,
sure
thank
that.
you for your service, whoever
Thank
it
you
is
for your
out there. Yep.
services, correct. And Jordan had mentioned about the Penn State network earlier. We put a link in the chat for LinkedIn, the Penn State alumni tool. There are over 500,000 Penn Staters on that platform. So that's a great place to reach out and find folks who would be good connections for you to have those conversations with.
Danielle, the next question in there, and that may
Mhm.
be the helpful part of that, connecting in through LinkedIn, but if there's one more question in the chat, very similar to the last.
Okay. Oh, can you provide some guidance on trying that one? Oh, on trying to get a job overseas as a defense contractor? Are there barriers like language, specific experiences, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, barriers. I get it. Details matter, I guess, in this one, right? It depends on the actual role that you're trying to get into. If you speak multiple languages, that's hugely beneficial and differentiates you from many others who would be applying, right? So that's amazing if you have it. But we do primarily the business language is English. So that's not always a barrier, but it's a nice to have. So I think it's more difficult to start internationally, at least from an RTX perspective. Like, we have the scale much more domestically in the US. So when you're thinking about roles in your first, say, 5 years, right, coming out of school, most of that opportunity set is going to sit in the US. Now, we've got huge populations around the world, but it really depends on what exactly you want to do. Do you need a security clearance for the work that you're performing or not, right? Because you're at a defense contractor. There's very different pieces. So unfortunately, there's not one clear answer to that question. But I don't know if Jordan, you've got a better answer.
No, probably not. I think it sounds like
Okay.
very similar from like a Lockheed Martin perspective. It's all very nuanced based on situation, and I'd say particularly for people new hires coming in, it is primarily U.S. based hiring, and overseas we're actually doing more and more local country national hiring. So less expats than maybe we've had in the past, just because of the expense and the partnerships we have with the countries where we're working.
Great, thank you. It is 4:54, so we probably have time for one more response from each of our panelists. So I'm just going to kind of open it up to each one of you. If you could just give those who are here today just your greatest tip or something maybe that you wish you knew as a Penn State student looking to enter into the field or enter into the professional world in general. Any guidance that you could provide them in any way, that'd be greatly appreciated. Can we start with Ashley?
Sure. So I think a couple of things that I learned along the way and find to be very, very important. Number one, when I got my first HR job, it was my senior year of college and I was an HR admin. And I remember going to the HR manager and being like, I don't even know how to fill out this I-9, right? There is a lot that is on the job training, like Jordan had mentioned earlier. And she looked at me and she said, honey, it's okay. Fake it till you make it. And I think in reality, I would look back and say, recognize that it is okay not to know everything. It is impossible to start in a career and know everything. And even to this day, there are things that I learn every day. So admit that and then find the answers. So take advantage of the people around you, take advantage of the resources that you have, and see this as a continued learning opportunity, because truly that's what it is. There's no expectation that anyone's going to come in here and be a 50-year experienced HR professional on day one. And the other thing that I think is very, very important is when I started in my career, I had this perception that HR had to be this very formal, very professional, suit and tie type of department. And I think I lost a lot of myself in that process. And, as I grew into my role and became more experienced, I saw how much value there was in bringing my whole self to work and being able to work at a company with a culture that had values that aligned with mine, and how much happier I am every single day because I've identified that and found a place that matters to me. So don't, in your career search, and again, I know being a senior in college or, whatever year you're in, but when you're looking for a job, again, it's like, I'll apply to anything I can, but don't forget to consider what's important to you when you're seeking out those opportunities, because it truly is going to have a really huge impact on your happiness and your success.
So I guess I'll go next. So just to follow on to that, so my point will be more of like, let's say you got the job, a job, right? And you're in. Be bold, take on the challenging assignments, take on the ones that make you go, oh my goodness, I really don't know what I'm getting into. I can't imagine why you actually want me to go do this thing, but I'm going to do it. And I say that because like I've had moments in my career, one very much in particular, where I chickened out for a challenging role because I didn't think that I had the capability to achieve in it. Somebody did, or they wouldn't have brought it to me, right? And they know better than anybody about what you can or can't do in that moment or what that role requires. So be confident, be willing to do the hard thing. You're in a room of 9 others and you know that the other 9 are going to say no to something because it looks messy. Be the one to say, you know what, I'll take it. It will pave a path for you later, and it will give confidence to the people that make hiring decisions for you, promotion decisions for you in the future. Confidence that, you know what, you're willing to jump into a mess. Like not everything is predictable. Most things aren't. But you're willing to go jump in and try to figure it out. So I would say be bold in that regard.
And growth is always uncomfortable, right?
Yeah, right.
If you're uncomfortable, it's a good thing.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, I think all good advice. And no pressure. What's the best piece of advice you have? I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
But you have to really think on this. But I think just in general, being curious and asking questions, and asking informed questions, right? Like do your homework. I know like you're in school now and you think like I can't wait to get out of school because I'm done with like homework and studying, but it doesn't stop, right? Be a lifelong learner, do your homework, be brushed up on the topics, and it will never kind of steer you wrong. I think the times when I have failed or times that I've regretted in my career has been times when I haven't done enough of the work up front to do the work and understanding and doing the research. So do that, and that's going to lead you to be able to make those informed questions, get really curious, and that's a really important part of learning about the organization that you're going to join and learning about the field and learning about your colleagues, just getting really, really curious and asking good questions.
Wow, this has been amazing. This hour just flew by. I
We're
had a
staying on
feeling
another. No, just kidding.
it just went by so quickly. Oh my goodness. Well, Dana and I want to thank all of those in attendance. And thank you so much to our alumni panelists. We appreciate you sharing your time and your expertise and supporting our students and for being such great mentors. That is so important. You all mentioned for our students. Thank you so very much. We cannot express our gratitude any stronger. And this has been recorded. This webinar has been recorded, so it will be uploaded to our YouTube channel after it is downloaded and put out there. But we just want to give a great big thank you. We appreciate you and all of your experience and insights. And we hope you all have a great rest of your Wednesday.
Thank you so much.
Jill.
Thank you,
Yes,
everyone.
Thank
Thanks all.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.